All right. How's everyone doing out there? Thank you for tuning in to the first ever podcast without a name. We're going to come up with a name in the coming days. I'm Cole Everett. For those of you that don't know, I just love talking about sports, so I figured it's time to make a podcast. So here we are. I'll be joined regularly starting next week, by Kobe Wharton.
Kobe!
We're going to be talking about anything sports related that's happening in the news during the week. We're not really sure on the logistics on how we're going to do it yet. We're going to work that out, but I figured I'll get it going here. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the college football playoff, it was decided a week ago now, depending on when you're listening to this, that the number 1 seed is going to be Alabama, 2 Clemson, 3 Notre Dame, 4 Oklahoma. So it means it's going to be Bama versus Oklahoma and Notre Dame versus Clemson. And this struck a nerve to a lot of people around here because this state is filled with Georgia fans, and they wanted to see their team in the playoff, and they were all pitching their case on Twitter and things alike. And you gotta love it, man. First of all, I mean, nothing wrong with fighting for your team, no doubt about it. The first thing I want to say is I don't think that it's indisputable. Alabama is better than Clemson. I think it's definitely the eye test says so, and I agree with that, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, and we're probably going to find out in the national championship game. But I think that's a conclusion that a lot of people are drawing when they're drawing this out and making their cases for Georgia especially. They believe that the SEC – well, the SEC is certainly the best conference, don't get me wrong. But I think that just having 2 losses that are SEC teams doesn't mean that it's any better than having 1 loss to a Big 12 or a Big 10 team. I think that's about even at best, to be honest. And the fact that UGA got blown out by LSU is pretty much the key fact here. I mean, their biggest game of the season, their regular season, they got completely washed by LSU, who turned out to not be a top 5 team in the nation based on the playoff rankings. Some may say that they are, but they have 3 losses. I mean, I realize Ohio State got blown out by Purdue, and that's pretty much just as bad. So I think that tosses them out as well, even though that was their only loss. Yeah, I get UGA they really played Alabama. I mean, they played them to the best. I mean, that was a great game. Probably the best game I've seen since the last time those 2 teams played. I mean, it is what it is. But you got to put in Oklahoma. I mean, that's based on the criteria of the playoff. It's the most deserving 4. All right? That's just what it is. You got to put in Notre Dame. They're not the top 4 team based on eye test or whatever you want to call it. You know, I think UGA is better than them. Based on the eye test right now. Now, 5 weeks ago, it would have been Notre Dame. But it comes down to UGA has 2 losses. Oklahoma has 1 loss and a conference championship. The committee looks at that. There's no way around it. And I know UGA fans want to say, oh, Alabama got in without a conference championship last year. Yeah, they did. That's true. But they also they have 1 loss to Auburn. And they didn't get a chance to play for the conference championship because they just lost at an opportune time to lose. You know? That's just what happened. And if UGA would have beat LSU and Bama was two undefeated teams playing last weekend, and they have one loss right now, then we'd have a real argument. I think UGA would be in. The committee would say, all right, a conference championship is good for Oklahoma, but it's only one loss for UGA, and their only loss is to Bama by a touchdown, or however much they lost by. But they lost to LSU, so I think that pretty much closes the case. I mean, Ohio State, yeah, they beat Michigan. They blew them out when Michigan was. I mean, that's the thing. 3 weeks ago, everyone was saying Michigan is no doubt a top 4 team based on the eye test. The eye can lie, man. The eyes can lie. It's what happens. Michigan got dismantled. They had the best defense in the nation and got 62 dropped on them by Ohio State. All right? Now, I'm not saying Ohio State deserves to get in just because of that. They don't deserve to get in. I think it's just a testament of the eye test and how it can lie. Ohio State, Oklahoma, the difference there, Oklahoma avenged their loss, and it was to a better team in Texas. Ohio State lost to Purdue. All right? So there's that. I think it's that simple. Oklahoma deserves a chance to play for the national title. They avenged their only loss handily in the Big 12 championship, and that's what it's all about. And I think, this is just me. We'll get into this more as time goes on, but I think they're going to give Bama a good game. I know their defense is awful, one of the worst in the nation, but their offense is the best in the nation, and I think it's just going to be a shootout just like the Rose Bowl last year. So, my top 4 would be exactly what the committee came up with, so I think they got it right. So, sorry UGA, enjoy dismantling Texas and get ready for next year because you're going to be in the same spot. And my advice to you next year is to go undefeated during the regular season so you can afford to lose to Bama in the SEC championship and get in there again and get back at them. All right?
In front of a record crowd at the end of a record-setting year, Atlanta United, in just their second year of existence, have won MLS Cup.
All right. Atlanta won a championship. That's right. Atlanta won a championship. Wow, that feels weird to say. The Atlanta United won the MLS Cup 2-0 over Portland Timbers the other night, Saturday night. And that was an awesome thing to see, man. I mean, I know that it's not one of the primary sports, whatever you want to say about Major League Soccer, but it was awesome, man. 73,000 people into that Benz, going crazy. I mean, I don't see how that doesn't get you fired up, man. I really don't. I mean, shout out to the whole team, Atlanta United, awesome win. Thank you for bringing a championship to the city. Tata Martino, the head coach, man, great job with the 2 years. You started up this startup company and took off running, man. And you deserve the Mexican national job, and I hope you guys can win a World Cup. I'll be rooting for you in the World Cup. Joseph Martinez, Miguel Almiron, Jeff Loretowitz, Brad Guzan, the goalie. Man, all these guys, awesome job. Escobar, Garza. Man, these guys, I had a ball watching these guys all season, man. I could tell from the first couple games. I don't pretend to be a soccer expert or nothing, but I could tell watching these first couple games this would be a special season, man. And It really was. We got that supporter shield taken away from us. We laid an egg out there in Toronto, and that turned out to be a moot point now that we've taken home what really matters. So the parade will be Monday, and that's awesome. And I hope this breaks the curse. This could be the start of something awesome here. And good luck to Martino and Almiron in their future endeavors, doing bigger and better things. And hopefully the United can find a new guy to keep it going.
The 2018 Heisman Trophy is awarded to Kyler Murray of Oklahoma University.
So perfectly timed with the halftime of that soccer game Saturday night was a Heisman Trophy ceremony award announcement. It was seemed like it was synced up perfectly. Right at halftime, I turned over and they were about to announce the Heisman winner, which turned out to be Kyler Murray, center field prospect for the Oakland. He plays quarterback for Oklahoma. I'm sorry, I thought I was thinking baseball. My fault, guys. Murray. He's a hell of a player, man. I'm glad he was able to win the award. Watching him against Texas this past weekend, I was just amazed. I mean, I haven't watched every Oklahoma game. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces, but that was the first one I really sat down and watched, and I was just amazed at his skill, man. So, he's going to be a baseball player in the MLB. I imagine he's going to be a very successful outfielder. I'm sure he can hose some people down, definitely track down a ball out there in center field. But his football skills is what's important right now. He's one of the most elusive quarterbacks, man. He's incredible, and I think it's a testament to Lincoln Riley that he's got 2 straight Heisman winners in 2 years as a head coach. I think that's pretty impressive. Kyler will definitely prove his worth, or hope to prove his worth against Alabama coming up pretty soon. So sure they'll have a good plan for him. They'll see how he handles it. So congrats to him. Second was Tua from Bama. So there you go. There's your 1 versus 2 quarterback matchup coming up in the I guess that's the Cotton Bowl. I guess they're playing that down in Jerry World. Yeah, I think they are. And so that'll be a fun thing to watch. 1 versus 2 in the Heisman Trophy voting, facing off QBs against each other. Haskins finished third, QB for Ohio State. So those were the 3 guys that made it to the ceremony. Actually, Murray and Tua were separated by less than 300 votes, I see here. So, wow. That's got to be one of the closer votes in history. So, congrats to both of those guys. Tua's probably kicking himself. I've seen some Bama fans upset about it. I think just let it go, man. He'll be all right, I promise. All right. Will Greer finishing 4, and Garner Minshew of Washington State number 5. So I had the same top 3. I agreed with them, and then actually number 4 I had Mackenzie Milton of Central Florida, and 5 I had Jonathan Taylor, running back for Wisconsin. He had 2,000 yards on the ground. Well, he's 11 short actually, but. Yep, so those were my top 5, a little different. They finished, Milton finished 6th and Taylor 9th. So the voting had a little bit different than me, but top 3 were the same. Congrats to everyone involved, and good luck in the future. The big news from college football this week was that head coach at Ohio State, Urban Meyer, is retiring from football for now. The news came out on December 5th that he will be stepping down after the bowl game, the Rose Bowl. And Ryan Day, the offensive coordinator who was interim coach earlier this season when Meyer was suspended, will be taking over as head coach permanently. So that was a quick coaching search for Ohio State. Pretty easy one. I think that was a good decision to let him stay on because he did a good job. As for Urban, a lot of people are speculating whether or not he's actually done. We all remember that he retired from Florida notoriously and just came back. So he's done this before. We know that he has legitimate health concerns. He has a brain cyst in his head that we've seen bother him on the sidelines during games, particularly in high-stress situations. He seems to really be in serious pain on the sideline at points in time. So that's why it really didn't surprise me when this news came out. I mean, you can say what you want about the guy, but when you're hurting, you're hurting. And it comes a point in time when you just want to lay low, Give yourself a chance to at least revamp. You know what I mean? He'll be hanging out with his wife, Shelly, and he has a daughter that graduated from Georgia Tech. So he'll be getting to spend time with them, so that's good. And whether or not he'll come back, I don't know. I'm sure it would be sooner rather than later if he's going to. Like probably in the next year or two. But I think it has a lot to do with the situation that he dealt with in the beginning of the season. I think if it wasn't for that, he may still be coaching. That's just my opinion. When he had to be suspended because he withheld information about his wide receiver coach, Zach Smith, abusing his girlfriend. So that was and he also lied about it at Big Ten Media Day. So that was definitely a mistake by him that I think he regrets. And it hurt his ego that he was suspended for a while. He has a great on-the-field reputation for sure. One of the best coaches win-loss-wise, without a doubt. Recruiting, for sure. So, obviously, Ohio State is going to miss him. But I think it was time for him to take a seat. So, at the end of the day, it's Ryan Day's show now at Ohio State. All right, now we'll be getting into the college football coaching carousel. Been very active this year, as usual. The biggest one closest to my heart is the Georgia Tech hiring of Jeff Collins. I'm a big Georgia Tech fan, so I was following this very closely. Paul Johnson was head coach at Tech for 10 years and did a very nice job with the triple option. But now we're going to go a different direction. I thought this was the right decision. I'm very happy with the hire personally. Collins comes from Temple. He was the head coach there for 2 years. 15-10 record in 2 seasons. Took over from Matt Rule, who is the Baylor coach now. Temple has a very high academics program, so that's pretty comparable to Tech, so I think that will be helpful. And Collins started his career playing at Western Carolina and started coaching there, and then actually was a graduate assistant at Georgia Tech. So that was his first stint at Tech, and then he came back a couple years later. He was under O'Leary the first time, and then he came back as recruiting coordinator under Chan Gailey, who had that year had the best class in program history. So I think that alone should definitely speak to the fact that Todd Stansberry, the AD, the athletic director, was adamant in finding someone who can help recruit, because historically, especially this last decade under Coach Johnson, we kind of punted the recruiting side of it to UGA. And there's a lot of people out there that believe that being in Atlanta, we should be able to compete with UGA recruiting-wise. So we'll see how this works out. I think it was the right move. Personally, I would have liked Scott Satterfield or Neil Brown or even Lane Kiffin, but I think this is the right type of guy, and especially with his background at Tech, that's huge. He was also a defensive coordinator under Dan Mullen at Mississippi State. He was also a defense coordinator under Muschamp and McElwain at Florida, and he's very successful. He was also a defense coordinator at Florida International. He won the Broyles Award at all three of those places, which goes out to the best assistant coach in college football. So winning the award at three different places speaks to his at least X's and O's, that he's a very good coordinator. So he can recruit. He's got X's and O's. He's got a background at Tech. So I think these are all things that were on the checklist that he checks off. He definitely going to be an uphill battle, and with the players that he have in right now, it's going to be difficult to win. Right off the bat, first game is going to be at Clemson, so that'll be an easy win, of course. Just kidding. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, we can't judge this off of 1 year. I hope we're able to get a bowl next year and maybe even compete for the ACC Coastal, which is very weak. We all know that. But if we don't, we don't. And, I mean, it's going to take time. I mean, recruiting is a process. And this is kind of a change of culture. So it's not going to be a 1 year thing. So I think Coach Collins, we give him time. We give him the right situation. I know in 2020 they're hoping to improve a lot of athletic venues and add in a new facility. So I think that'll be a good pitching point to the recruits. Definitely a step in the right direction. I know they were talking to Kim Wisenhunt, the offensive coordinator for the San Diego Chargers. He was a NFL head coach for the Titans and the Cardinals. There was multiple rumors that we offered him the job, and then he withdrew his name. So we're not sure how. I mean, we'll never know what really happened. But either way, I'm glad it didn't happen. I think it would have been not a bad hire, but not as good as this one that we made. Just mainly because he hasn't coached in college in a long time, and I think it'd be difficult pitch for recruits. So I wish Kim Wisenhunt the best, certainly. He was also a GT player, or a GT background. He played at GT with the athletic director Stansberry, so that's why a lot of people were putting those two together. But I'm just glad we got Coach Collins. I think it's going to be a fun ride with him, the Minister of Mayhem, as they call him. So we'll see how that goes. Moving on to, we'll go to Colorado, because this is relevant to a lot of people listening who are UGA fans. They hired defensive coordinator for UGA, Mel Tucker. Coach Tucker has an extensive background. I remember when he was the defense coordinator for the Bears 10-plus years ago. So he's been around. He's been in the NFL, multiple colleges, so he's got experience. Never was a head coach, I don't think. So this will be first time for him. It's out there in Boulder. It's nice and chilly, so hopefully he brings a nice winter coat with him. Colorado, I tell you what, they could be good. They've got some nice facilities. They're in a pretty weak division. I could see them being very successful under him. I could definitely see that. Well, like Coach Collins, it'll take a while, but under McIntyre, Coach Mike McIntyre, Colorado fired him this year. They actually started 5-0, I think, and then lost every game. So, obviously, there's a chance, a window of success. I mean, they started out 5-0, so they just keep winning. So, I think that was a good hire by them. I actually said a lot last year when I was looking at that UGA defense. more so last year than this year, that he's got head coach in him for sure. So we'll see how that goes. Mike Locksley becomes a head coach at Maryland. He's a Alabama offensive coordinator. So that's just another Saban assistant getting the head coaching job. We know that that has happened quite a bit, and they've never beat him. Pretty incredible. And if Maryland finds its way on Bama's schedule any time soon, I imagine that will continue. Add another win to that column. Coach Locke, he was the head coach at New Mexico. What I remember from that was absolute turmoil. This is probably not quite 10 years ago. But he was only there 2 years, I believe, and only won like 3 games or something. So we'll see if he can improve that win-loss record at Maryland. It certainly won't be easy with that division. They have Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan in that division. So going to be an uphill battle. The hire is not something I hate. Maryland's in a difficult position, we all know. I don't know why they didn't just keep Coach Canada, though, the interim coach. I thought he did a pretty good job. But it is what it is. I know Locksley has a DMV background. He's from that area. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. If I had to guess, I would say he'll be fired in less than 4 years. That's just my opinion. So we'll go to Louisville. Scott Satterfield. This was a guy I really wanted to be hired at Tech. He is the Appalachian State head coach. He did really good things there. He was there for over 5 years. Took them out of the FCS straight into the FBS, and then started winning right off the bat. They won the Sun Belt this year. Just a really good coach. You don't hear a bad thing about him. Seems to really know what it takes to win. So I think this was a great hire by Louisville. Surprising. Well, I guess it's a whole new regime that's in there because, the last hire that they made of Petrino is just unbelievable. I don't know how you hire that guy again. So they made the right decision to fire him. They got rid of Patino basketball. So they're hoping to clean the face of their program. I called them Loserville when they had the Patino-Petrino combo, but now with Coach Satterfield and Chris Mack, the basketball coach, I like them now. So Louisville gets their name back. Congrats to them. Mack Brown is a UNC coach now, North Carolina. They fired Larry Fedora, mercifully. Mack Brown was a coach at Texas for a very long time. He won the national title, of course, unforgettably, against USC in that Rose Bowl. And then it went downhill slowly from there, and then towards the end, it just got really messy at Texas. He's on the record saying he didn't even really care and stopped recruiting, and that's why it really kind of surprised me that he decided to try his hand at coaching again. But North Carolina was able to look past it, and obviously he doesn't have much of a shelf life as a guy that you would think you would want to bring in there. Coach Brown is not going to coach for 10 plus more years. I can promise you that. But I think it could improve their program for sure. He's a big name for sure. He's been on ESPN for multiple years now, so people know who he is. It could be like a two-step turnaround or two-coach turnaround for UNC. Brown gets in there, retires after 2 or 3 years and gets them on the right track, and then the next guy comes in and is ready to win, So we'll see how that goes. Also at Texas Tech, they decided to hire Matt Wells, the Utah State coach. He's been there about 6 years. He's a good coach. he had them right at the top of the Mountain West after they were not very good, frankly, under him at first. But he turned them around, and they were a win away from playing for the Mountain West title. So he was a hot name in the coaching market, and it came down to his ties with Texas. So there it was, a nice little hire to replace Cliff Kingsbury. So we'll see how he does. I think he's a pretty good coach. I would have taken him at Tech, to be honest. And then some other good ones. You got Jim McElwain being hired as the head coach at Central Michigan. He was the Florida head coach, of course, for I think 4 years, 3.5 maybe. Not very successful, but quite a character. I'd like to see if he'll be successful there. Then you got Hugh Freeze being hired at Liberty University, the independent school, the Christian school. So that's quite the match. He was the Ole Miss head coach who was fired for calling an escort into the coach's office. So pretty Christian-like, I'd say. Then lastly, the last one I want to talk about is happened a while ago in the middle of the season, actually. Les Miles at Kansas, the grass eater. He used to coach at LSU. We all remember him. I think this is a great hire by Kansas. I think it's going to help their program immensely. I mean, they really haven't been relevant in football for a decade, so I think that's another big name that'll get recruits in there. It could be similar to the Matt Brown thing at UNC, a two-coach turnaround. But if Miles doesn't want to stick around, I mean, Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas, what a place, huh? They love their basketball there, though, for sure. So yeah, I think that's a good hire. I think they could end up being bowl eligible next year right off the bat. To be honest, I think they'll start competing right away. That's just how I feel. They're Kansas State still looking for a coach after Bill Snyder retired. That sounds like they're going to hire the North Dakota State coach. FCS powerhouse North Dakota State. So we'll see if that actually happens. And then who else is looking for a coach? I think that's it. The major schools. Temple, of course, since we stole their coach, and they're really upset. Those fans are not happy with him. But, I mean, it is what it is, guys. I'm sorry. I mean, those AAC schools, I mean, they're just a stepping stone for Power 5 schools. I mean, why would you want to stay there when you can get the big Power 5 money? Scott Frost did it with Central Florida. I'm sure. I know Fuente at Virginia Tech came from Memphis. I'm sure that Norvell at Memphis will do it very soon. I know he's been in talks for a while. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, you win in a conference like that, you're going to go up to the Power 5. I'm sorry. So, yeah, I hope they get a good guy in there and maybe one who will actually stay. But if they win, they're probably going to go. So, so I think that should be it for the coaching hires for now. Cliff Kingsbury, offense coordinator at USC under Clay Helton, they decided to keep him around. Kobe and I can get into all that when he gets on here. But I just wanted to, recap all the head coaching hires. Okay, time for baseball. There's been some big deals recently in the MLB, so we're just going to recap those real quick and just go through those, especially the big ones. The most recent one was the Arizona Cardinals. I'm in full football mode. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Arizona Diamondbacks actually agreed to a deal to send Goldschmidt to the Cardinals, Paul Goldschmidt. And in return, the Diamondbacks got pitcher Luke Weaver, catcher Carson Kelly, and infielder Andy Young. So I don't think this is a great return for Goldschmidt. I like Weaver, but he really hasn't showed that he has what it takes to be a starting pitcher year in, year out for an organization. He has a motor for sure, and he has a very high upside for Luke Weaver. But I'm not sure he's really a good enough marquee pitcher to return in that deal. Carson Kelly, the catcher that they got, is good. He's really good. He's been backing up Yachty, so I imagine that he'll be starting immediately if I had to guess. He can play. Especially he's not the best hitter, but he's got a great glove. Carson Kelly, he filled in a lot for Yachty last year when he got hurt. And Goldschmidt, this trade for the Cardinals, this was A plus, man. Goldschmidt is exactly the kind of guy they need. He's 31 years old. That's all. People make it out to be he's some old dude. He's got a couple more years of greatness. If you ask me, batting average, home runs, RBIs, he does it all, man. He's about a Joey Votto as you get. He can play the game, and he doesn't even strike out like Votto does. He walks a lot too. So they put him in the middle of the lineup with Yachty and Carpenter and Ozuna. And they're cooking in St. Louis. Mike Schlitt took over for Mike Matheny as manager midway last year, and they were a couple of games off the playoffs. And I'm sure next year they're going to be competing for that NL Central with the Brewers and Cubs. This team's going to be good. The pitching could use some help, for sure. But, offensively, this is a team to watch out for if they stop making stupid errors. I would say this was the best pickup so far that I've seen. The other big one was Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz are heading to the Mets, New York Mets, picking up those Seattle Mariners guys. They sent back Jay Bruce and some prospects, some top prospects, from what I understand. And Bruce is a DH, so I'm glad he's heading to the AL, because watching him play the outfield was absolutely awful. Man, they're full rebuild. They are not beating around the bushes or nothing. They are empty in the roster. So that organization actually, they man. It seems like not even a year ago they were competing for the AL West with the Astros. So now they're just ready to mail it in and be the worst team in baseball. They traded away Alex Colomé as well, to the White Sox, who was their setup man. And they traded away James Paxton. So he was their best pitcher. He's in New York now. So yeah, they got rid of Paxton, Diaz, Cano, Colomé. Segura. I forgot about Segura. They traded him to the Phillies. That also happened the other day. Yeah, they got Carlos Santana back for and J.P. Crawford, who was a highly touted prospect for the Phillies, at shortstop, but then just kind of fell off. So he could actually come out of his shell there in Seattle. That could be a nice little pickup. But they gave up Segura, Pezos, and Nicasio. Those are two relievers, and Gene Segura, a good shortstop, a couple-time All-Star. So I think he was there last year. So They got rid of Segura, Cano, Diaz, Paxton, and Colome. So they still have Mitch Haniger, who was probably their best player, and I heard the Braves were actually asking about him. So, well, I hope that comes to fruition. But it sounds like they might actually be keeping him, so I don't understand that. If you're going to trade everyone, you might as well get rid of Haniger as well, because there are teams like the Braves that could really use a guy like that. But the Diaz-Cano trade is big for the Mets because Diaz is the best closer in baseball, in my opinion. He's locked down. He will come in and shut you down for sure. I mean, there are very few times that he goes wild. So that was put him at the back of your bullpen, and then Cano. He served that 80-game suspension for PEDs last year and got hurt as well. So we're not real sure where he's at this point. If he can get back to even half of what he was once upon a time, I mean, man, this could be a huge deal for the Mets. I mean, I know they got this new GM in here, Brody Van Wagen. The fans were giving him a hard time about. He wasn't qualified, but I mean, this looks like a good deal to me, especially with Diaz. I think Braves fans are going to get to know him very well, not in a good way. So I think that was a good deal for them. Are there any other deals I wanted to talk about? With the Braves, of course, they signed Josh Donaldson and Brian McCann. So that's awesome. First of all, the Donaldson deal was 1 year, and it was $27 million, I believe, which is an absurd amount of money. But I think it might be worth the risk. I'm going to trust our guy here, Alex Anthopoulos, the GM. He was with Donaldson in Toronto. Donaldson, the biggest. I mean, there's no doubt the guy can play. I mean, anyone who's watched baseball the last 10 years knows, well, probably 5 years, knows Donaldson can play. I mean, he was tearing it up for Toronto at one point, and the biggest question is injuries. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's got the calf problem, and it really derailed him last year, the year before as well. So, I mean, we're looking at 2 straight seasons here that he's had calf issues. Last year, sorry, I'm watching Bengals. Marvin Lewis wants a timeout, it looks like. He doesn't even know what's going on, shockingly. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, Donaldson, I mean, it's the injuries. If he can stay healthy and play, I mean, say 140 games out of 162, I'd be happy. I mean, that would be huge. I mean, stick him at third base. I mean, a lot of people are saying, what are you going to do with Camargo? I mean, put him at shortstop with Dansby, platoon him, have him off the bench. I mean, this is a huge. I mean, if Donaldson can produce, I mean, this is what we've been needing, a home run hitter, man. This is it right here. I mean, if he stays on the field and produces like I know he can, this could be what gets us over the hump. Josh Donaldson. I like this deal. I like McCann too, of course. I mean, even if he's not able, he's got injury problems too. He's a lot older, but I mean, just being close to home is going to be very helpful to him. And I mean, just the clubhouse presence of him. I mean, he's won a World Series with the Astros. I mean, we know what he's capable of. I mean, we've seen that. So I mean, he'll come through for some big hits. I can guarantee you that. And behind the plate, he'll be helpful. Definitely not every day, of course. So we got Flowers. I mean, we'll probably platoon those 2 guys, and I think we're gonna be set on offense as long as we come to a conclusion on this right field thing. That's gonna be our last priority for offense, for position players. Pitching, we're going to have to figure something out. But position players, we just need that right fielder. If we re-sign Markakis to a 1-year deal, I'd be happy. If not, we'll find someone. I mean, I'm glad that we're asking about guys like Haniger and Peralta. But if we can't come up with one of those guys and we can't come up with Markakis, then it is what it is. We're going to find someone. I mean, we're going to find someone to play right field. It's just that we need someone who's not going to hold us back with bad outfield play or bad at-bats. You know? As long as they're putting the ball in play and, keeping the average up at 250, close to it at least, I mean, I'm good. I mean, we've got a good offer. We've got Freeman, Ozzie. I'm expecting huge things from Freeman, Ozzie, and Ender this season. Acuna, I can live with if he goes on a slide in a sophomore slump. I could see that, and I mean he's just a baller anyway. He's gonna give his all every game. I already know that. So if he goes in a sophomore slump like Ozzie did this year, I think we can get through that. But Ozzie this season, I think he's gonna come out ready to go. He's I mean this is gonna be his time to shine. And then Ender, what was that onside kick? That didn't go 10 yards. Yep, there comes the flag. Yeah, Bengals tried a 2-yard onside kick, it looked like. They were just going to put it on a leash and hope it went 10. So it looks like the Chargers will pull that one out. But yeah, those two signings for the Braves, I think those were good, really good deals by Anthopoulos. I'm sure he's not done. I know he's not done, actually. So, there you go. I think that should be good for the baseball talk for now. All right, so it's time for the NFL recap for Week 14. Starting with Thursday Night Football, the Titans completely dominated the Jaguars in Nashville from start to finish. Derrick Henry scored 4 touchdowns, including a 99-yard run. So that's about all you need to know about that game. The Titans are 7-6, and the Jaguars are 4-9. Moving on to Sunday, starting with our Atlanta Falcons, lost yet again for the 5th straight game. They're now 4-9. The Packers are 5-7-1. This was their first game under interim coach Joe Philbin after firing Mike McCarthy last week. And he used 2 challenges in the first drive, and neither of them were successful, even though the first one definitely should have been. They called a catch for Julio. That definitely was not a catch. I have no idea how they didn't overturn it. The second one, I don't know why he challenged. But, of course, it didn't matter because Dan Quinn didn't take advantage of it. He actually gave them a free timeout, as usual, going into the half, and they got 3 points before the half, and they never looked back from there. So, yet again, poor coaching by Dan Quinn results in a loss for the Falcons. I think this needs to be addressed in the offseason. However, I'm happy that we're able to lose this game, and the bottom teams look like they're continuing to win, so we may end up sneaking up to the first or second pick, which would be huge. So I'm all about losing. Next, we got the very similar to the Falcons, the Carolina Panthers lost their 5th straight game. This one was in Cleveland to the Browns. Sound familiar? They lost 26-20. They had a chance to kick a field goal and make it 26-23 with about 3 minutes left with 2 timeouts and a 2-minute warning, but they went for it and were unsuccessful. Similar to us, just poor coaching decisions, results of their losses time and time again. They fired half their staff already. I imagine that this will be the last year for Coach Rivera in Carolina. If not, I mean, good for the Falcons. and the other NFC South teams, but they are now 6-7 after starting 6-2, and the Browns are 5-7-1. So they're just proving that Hugh Jackson was a terrible coach, continuing to prove that. Mayfield and Landry had a very good day for them, so we'll see if they can get to 500 before the end of the season under Greg Williams, interim coach. Next, you got the Saints, who came back to beat the Bucs. They were losing for, about 2.5 quarters of this game. And then they kind of snapped out of it and pulled it out. The Bucs were hoping to make a late run into the playoffs, but they're now 5-8, so not looking good for them. The Saints are 11-2 and clinched the NFC South division for the second straight year. I believe that's the first time they've ever done that, so congrats to them. Right now, they're just playing for the 1 seed. Next, you got the Dolphins. One of the most miraculous plays I've ever seen.
Tannehill will throw it, and this will end it after the shovel, or will it? Miami running around, circling. Oh, look out! Gronkowski didn't have the angle. Touchdown! Oh, Kenyon Drake! A miracle!
The classic lateral play to end the game actually worked for them against the Patriots, and they pulled it out again. It seems like the Patriots are truly cursed in Miami. They just can't win in Miami. Score was 34-33. The Dolphins are 7-6 now, so they continue to squeak above 500 and might end up getting into the playoff. We'll see. And the Patriots are 9-4, so they're losing ground on the Chiefs for that 1 seed. So, I mean, this was a huge win for the Dolphins, and Kenyon Drake getting in the lateral and taking it 70 yards, you just can't make that up. Next, you got the Chiefs edging the Ravens in overtime. This was a very good game. 2 good teams. The Ravens will be in the playoffs, in my opinion. The Chiefs are 11-2. The Ravens are 7-6. And this game came down to a couple key plays. The Chiefs were able to get in field goal range at the end on a miraculous scramble by Mahomes to get away and chuck it downfield to Tyreek Hill, who found himself getting open. And then the Chiefs were able to get into overtime and pull it out on a field goal. They got the ball to start overtime and kicked a field goal, and then the Ravens couldn't move the ball. Then Lamar Jackson, who had a pretty good game, went down. RG3 came in at quarterback, and on 4th and 22 had a good throw. Looked like his receiver might have got interfered with, but no call, and that was the ball game. So Chiefs win again. Another big day for Mahomes, proving that he should win the MVP, in my opinion. The Colts ended the Texans' win streak that they started 9 games ago when they were too cool to tie the game and gave them a free win. And the Texans haven't lost that until now, when the Colts took care of business like they should have and won 24-21. The Texans tried to come back here at the end, but just couldn't do it. So the Colts are 7-6. The Texans 9-4. The Texans still feeling pretty good about the division. The Colts looking at the wild card. Going to have some key games here down the stretch, but that was a good win for them. The Giants were up 40-0 on the Redskins and Mark Sanchez. The Redskins are completely done. They just look terrible. Giants are trending upward for sure. No Odell, but it didn't matter. They are now 5-8. Redskins 6-7. The Jets beat the Bills. This game was back and forth the whole time, and then the Jets had a chance. They were down by 3 with about a minute left, and 4th and goal from the 1. They could have tied it up and played for overtime, but Todd Bowles elected to go for it, and it worked out. Had a man wide open, and Darno found him, and they pulled it out against the Bills, improving their record to 4-9. The Bills are also 4-9. These two teams are pretty much the same to me. That was a good game. Moving on to the 4 o'clock window, you got the Cowboys getting every freaking call that you can imagine, beating the Eagles in overtime on a deflected pass that just bounced right into Amari Cooper's hands, who had a huge game and has proven that the Raiders made a mistake getting rid of him, just like they did getting rid of Khalil Mack. Cooper had 217 yards receiving and 3 TDs. They won 29-23, improved to 8-5. Eagles are now 6-7. They gave it their all, even with all their injuries. I mean, they competed to the very end. Couple calls that didn't go their way. The Cowboys are looking like they're wrapping up the division. They're gonna win the NFC East, which is a long way from where we were, a month ago when they were trying to shove Jason Garrett out the door when they were 3-5. So impressive win by them to pull it out. The Raiders upset the Steelers 24-21. Derek Carr had a good game. Gruden was fired up, high-fiving the crowd for their third win. They're now 3-10. I say keep winning. Good for the Falcons. The Steelers are 7-5-1. That's a disappointing loss coming off of the game they blew to the Chargers. So they're definitely trending downward. So we'll see if they can hold on to that division with the Ravens breathing down their neck. And a game with them lingering. So it'll be interesting to see if they can hold on. I know Connor didn't play today, so we'll see if he can get back in there. They might be wishing they had 26 ready to play, but that is long gone. 49ers upset the Broncos at home, and they get their third win. So the Bay Area teams come up with their third wins, both of them. Broncos, really bad loss. They looked like they were going to make a push for the playoffs here, and then all of a sudden they lose Emmanuel Sanders, had an injury at practice, and now they were down 20-0 in this game, and they fought back, but just couldn't get over the hump. So I think this is probably going to be Vance Joseph last year in Denver. They're 6-7. Even if they win the last 3, I'm not sure they can get in. They probably could, but they won't win the last 3. The 49ers, hoping they can pull out another win and pass the Falcons in the standings. Nick Mullins filling in for Jimmy G pretty well. Greg Kittle had 210 yards receiving. That's amazing for a tight end. And I believe those were all in the first quarter. It's incredible. So good win for the Bay Area teams. And the Lions beat the Cardinals. That was a good win for the Lions. 4th win of the season for them. Cardinals have 3. The Lions are 5-8, and the Cardinals are 3-10. And they come into the Benz next week, so a perfect chance for the Falcons to lose and let them pass us in the standings. So that's it for the 4 o'clock games, I think. And the Chargers beat the Bengals 26-21. The Bengals, Jeff Driscoll-led Bengals, were hanging around there, but Marvin Lewis couldn't do it. Hugh Jackson by his side, fall again. They're now 5-8, I believe. And the Chargers are 10-3. So Chargers are getting that Thursday night showdown with the Chiefs this week. So we'll see how they handle that. They could end up winning the division if they win that game. So I'm sure they'll be giving it their all. Nice of them to pull it out, though, against the Bengals. That would have been a really bad loss, coming off the win against the Steelers. And then the Sunday night football game, you got the Bears just completely smothering the Rams. Look, the Rams' offense has been one of the best all season. And then they come into Soldier Field for a Sunday night game and just look terrible. Jared Goff had his worst game since Jeff Fisher was the coach, with 4 interceptions. This game was completely controlled by the Bears defense. They win 15-6. They're 9-4 now, and the Rams are now 11-2. The final game of the Week 14 NFL slate was the Vikings at the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. And as usual, the Seahawks showed up for the primetime affair. Their defense was not allowing anything from the Vikings' poor offense, who could just not get anything going. In fact, they fired offensive coordinator John DeFilippo the next day. With about 7 minutes left in the game, they got the ball into the red zone of Seattle. However, they decided to go for it on 4th and goal rather than kick the field goal and make it a 6-3 ball game, which would have been very helpful towards their chances of a comeback. 6-0, they go for it. An incomplete pass, turnover on downs, and Seattle ends up scoring a touchdown to make it 14-0, and then it goes to 21-0 just like that after the blocked field goal that there's a lot of controversy surrounding. The story with the blocked field goal is Bobby Wagner propelled off of one of his own players to get over the line of scrimmage and block the kick, which is not allowed. However, they picked up the flag and allowed it. So that was another terrible call by the NFL, which seems to be a theme of the week this week. Poor calls by the officials. This one, I don't think it would have changed the game, the outcome of the game at least, but it did change the game because that would have made it a 14-3 game rather than a 21-0 game. So obviously that was a huge play. So the Seahawks improved to 8-5, and they're cruising towards that 5 seed in the NFC playoff, the top wild card spot. Doesn't look like they'll catch the Rams. However, they would be happy to get a wild card. They'll be in the playoffs unless they collapse, and the Vikings still are in good position for the 6th seed, even with the loss, but they got to turn it on, man. I can see why they fired the OC. These last 3 games could decide the franchise fate. So we'll see if they're able to sneak in the playoffs or not at 6-1 right now. So the game with the Packers will be huge coming up. And good luck to both of those guys. What a great week. Another great week of the NFL. Okay. We've reached the end of the first ever podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. This is like a rough draft, so if you're listening, I really, really trust your opinion and want you to give a complete, honest feedback to me so I can make it better. And when Kobe comes on, we'll have a game plan for sure. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I messed up trying to make this. So next time with Kobe, our first real one, it'll be hopefully a success. So thanks again for listening, and we'll have bowl previews next show, and we'll be talking about, of course, Week 15 of NFL and all the news that's going on with college football and all that, and baseball, of course, with the winter meetings going on. There's a lot going on right now, so there's plenty more deals that I need to add. And thank you again so much, guys. I really appreciate it. And embrace debate.